And once again, a very warm welcome to all of our attendees for this morning's Toolbox Talk. Coming up for the month of May, we are still looking at hazardous chemical substances. That is the PVC glue that we are going to be looking at this morning. Then next week, we are looking at confined spaces as a hazardous environment, what classifies as a confined space. And then at the end of the month, we are going to be looking at registers and checklists. What type of registers and checklists do we need? Now, we know many IOPSA members have been requesting information on PPE for the COVID-19 returning to work, especially due to the Disaster Management Act and the new regulations that came out on the 29th of April. So we are going to have a little bit of a discussion on that next week. So please tune in for that. But if you would like some more information for this week, perhaps you are a level 4 service provider, you're still on that essential services list, and you need some information, a COVID-19 risk assessment, or even just some templates based on the actual appointment letter from the Disaster Management Act section 16.6, or even just some registers and checklists to get yourself going. Even if you have something already and you'd like to just compare it to how we do our COVID-19 management plans, please reach out to us. Just drop me an email. That is chris@ohss.co.za, and I will do my best to assist you with some templates for that as well. Please remember, as an IOPSA member, we are giving this out to you as IOPSA members, so it is going to be based on plumbing. If you are not an IOPSA member, perhaps you're a health and safety professional or in a different industry aside from plumbing, please let me know that when you do send through an email so that I can adjust the actual plan to take out the plumbing terminology and information so that we can send you a document that can assist you further in that way. All right, so let's get straight into the Toolbox Talk this morning on PVC glue. Today we are talking about the Tang PVC glue. Now, the very first question I want to ask every single person out in the audience is, do you have your MSDS for this type of product? The reason is, although it can be used as a flexible, waterproof, and resistant to heat pressure bonding, obviously because it is a glue, it can be used to join PVC pipes, ABS pipes, for any different types of pressure applications as well. And it is very widely used in the plumbing industry. Now, speaking to just a few of my clients that are plumbers, they say this is the one that they're pretty much using quite often. Now, did we know that there is an MSDS that is based for European standards? Then there is an MSDS that is based for the Australian standards. And then there is also an MSDS that you can find for the South African standards, all on the same page when searching for this type of MSDS. So we need to be very careful with the type of MSDS that we are downloading. You see, Henkel, especially here in South Africa, have MSDSs for South Africa specifically, and that is because we determine our occupational exposure limits differently to the rest of the world. And there are certain regulations in South Africa that are also different to the rest of the world. So we are not using the European standard here, although some of that terminology will come out in the MSDS. We do want to reference our own South African legislation when discussing MSDS's risk assessments, as well as the safe working procedure for this chemical. So we have got the South African version for you. If you'd like information on that, or if you'd like the actual MSDS itself, again, you can just drop us a mail, chris@ohss.co.za, or even safety@iopsa.org. You can even leave your email, and then I can get that information to you. Just as a side note, some emails that have come through to me, when I've emailed that address, it is returning back to me as an undeliverable address. So please make sure you are spelling your email correctly when you send it through to us, or perhaps send us an email first so that we know we have the correct one as well. We do apologize if you have been missing anything. Again, if you have missed anything, let us know. We definitely want to get you the information that you need. So is this a hazardous chemical substance? Well, let us take a look at the MSDS, and I'm going to read a few risk phrases, and it's actually going to be on your screen as well. The MSDS risk phrases of this chemical says that it is highly flammable. It causes serious eye damage. It is irritating to the respiratory system. Repeated exposure or continuous use may cause skin dryness and cracking. The vapors may cause drowsiness and dizziness, and it is suspected of causing cancer because it contains carcinogens. So my question to you then, is this a dangerous substance? Well, let us take a look at what the MSDS says on some risk or safety phrases. In other words, there's the risk category. It's highly flammable, it's an irritant, it causes severe damage to eyes if it is exposed to it. But here are some safety phrases directly out of this MSDS. And you would obviously notice your basic ones: keep out of reach of children, keep away from heat, hot surfaces, open flames, do not smoke near it. And that is according to your risk phrases. It's highly flammable and it causes serious injury. So that would be a given. But notice a few others. Do not breathe in mist or vapors. Well, this already tells you what type of PPE you need. Is it not true? Use only outdoors or in a well-ventilated area. Wear protective goggles and eye protection. And then you can go into a little bit of the first aid measures, where if it is coming into contact with your eyes, nose, or mouth, then what type of first aid measures need to be taken. Now, when we discuss this type of chemical, almost every single chemical that we use will have a product safety sheet, a PSD, an MSDS, which is a material safety data sheet, or even just a SDS, which is a safety data sheet. So you can look up either one of these. But the MSDS is going to give you all the information, and the MSDS that we are using for the Tang PVC glue has got 16 sections to the MSDS. From the information of the actual product, to the chemical composition of the product, to the risk category, being flammable, causing eye damage. It even takes you through to the PPE that you need to use when dealing with this product. It takes you down to the waste disposal measures. Unfortunately, it does not have a risk assessment attached to it, and I haven't as yet seen a hazardous chemical substance that I've worked with that comes with a full risk assessment. We've had to design our own around the actual use of this type of chemical. But all the information that you need is in this MSDS. Now, last week we promised that we were going to take you through the PPE that you need, as well as how to design the actual risk assessment for working with this type of chemical. Now, if you have something already, great, you can just use this as an optional extra. If you have not as yet taken this type of product seriously, perhaps you are a plumber out in the industry, you are using this product, but you did not realize the amount of information required in order to actually work with this product, please listen to this Toolbox talk. Perhaps go back and listen to it again on the YouTube channel for IOPSA and really get the most information out to protect yourself and your employees who are working with this type of chemical. So let us start off with a PPE that is going to be used for this very dangerous substance. There are 4 general types of PPE that we are using, and this is over and above your mandatory PPE. So when we talk about PPE specific to the environment or the task, that is going to be on your normal risk assessment. This will be over and above, so additional PPE. So what we are saying is the 4 types of PPE that you see on your screen, goggles, gloves, combination filter, masks, and coveralls, these are what you need for the Tang PVC glue. If you're going to use that glue, this is your basic PPE. But your site might require you to wear a hard hat. It might require you to wear a face shield. It might require you to wear safety boots, which should be your normal general mandatory PPE. So we expect you to have your general PPE with you, such as your safety boots and coveralls. But this is additional ones for this product. Now you'll notice that the goggles or the safety glasses that we have are very different to many of the ones that are being used. And this is because according to the MSDS, it says you need to use goggles that seal tightly. Now, this is because of the fumes of the actual tangled PVC, especially when we're exposed to the substance for prolonged periods of time. And this can attach to the eyeball and it can start causing irritation. Now, the longer that irritation lasts, the more of an occupational exposure limit there is, and you're not allowed to be exposed to that limit of this PVC glue for a specific period of time. And the MSDS gives you all of this information. But this is not a recommendation. This is the glasses that you must use when using this product. Now, going through some of our clients, looking at the goggles that they were using, we found that 80% were not using the correct goggles, even though it was stated on the risk assessment. So this is extremely important for all employers as well as employees to know and understand the risk assessment that they are dealing with, and also the product that they are dealing with, so that the risk assessment is updated to the category or class of chemical substance that we are using. Now, it also spoke about nitrile gloves, but it gave two specific types of gloves when you actually looked at the MSDS. So looking at it just as a glance, it said for short contact time. Now, it gave an actual contact time, 1 to 5 minutes. That was the contact time for using this type of PVC glue. If you used it for that amount of time, just 1 to 5 minutes, the gloves could be made from this nitrile rubber. And this is a thickness of about 0.2 millimeters. But anything longer than 5 minutes, you had to have gloves made from butyl rubber. That is recommended according to your standard 374, and the material thickness needed to be 0.7 millimeters. So we need to know, read, and understand very clearly the MSDS that we are working with. The MSDS, however, for the European standard, and in this case, we are talking about the Australian standard for Henkel Australia, did not give this type of clarity on gloves. It simply said nitrile gloves were sufficient. However, under the South African regulations, they are stating that nitrile gloves are only effective up to 5 minutes of usage. Thereafter, you must use butyl rubber, which is recommended in accordance with a specific standard, the 374 standard, and it even gives a specific material thickness, 0.7 millimeters. Now, all of this type of information is extremely important when planning a job, because you need to use the correct type of PPE. Now, what about the combination filter? Now, a combination filter or a filter cartridge has different categories, and in this case, it is requesting you to use an ABEKP filter. Now, what does that mean? Well, I'm just going to hover over the next slide, and you'll notice that the filter cartridge definitions come up. Your A class is any organic vapors and solvents with a boiling point of lower than 65 degrees. Your B category is inorganic vapors and gases. Your class E is acid vapors and gases, which is sulfur dioxide. Your category K is your ammonia and organic substances. And then P3 is toxic solid or liquid aerosols. Now, what type was recommended on the MSDS? It was an ABEKP combination filter. In other words, a filter that could filter out all the different types of chemicals that is found in this PVC glue. Now, many of us are just using normal dust masks, and this is not sufficient when using this type of product. In fact, we need to go as far as to say, please take a look at the type of filter that you are buying, even on your N95 mask, which takes out 95% of airborne particles. 95% is a very good amount. However, if we're taking a look at combination filters with your specific categories of ABEKP, you are looking at cartridge filters that are actually connected to a type of gas mask. Now, this all depends, again, on the time that you are dealing with this type of hazardous chemical substance. But perhaps we didn't go as far as in our preparation to take a look at the specific types of PPE, from goggles to gloves, and even the combination filters of the masks that we are using. As a side note, due to COVID-19, we are expected to wear masks all the time when being outdoors, especially when it is possible to wear this even on site. However, that type of mask that you are using, especially if it is a cloth mask that is reusable, is not sufficient when using this PVC glue. So I just want to repeat that. If you have a COVID-19 mask and you are wearing that every single day and you're going out and you are keeping yourself safe from COVID-19, that will only be effective with airborne particles and bacteria that can be contracted, such as influenza or any COVID-19 type of virus. It is not effective with the fumes that are emitted from PVC glues. So please ensure that you have an additional combination filter mask that you will wear when using this product, and thereafter you can put your COVID-19 mask back on when working in the environment. Again, take a look at the environment that you're working in. Take a look at the products, the tools, or the equipment that you're working in. Perhaps it is going to explain to you that you need a different type of mask over and above your COVID-19 mask as well. So it's very important for us to have these COVID-19 masks. We want to wear them at all times while we are out, but we may need to take it off and apply a stricter, more stringent type of control on our PPE when working in specific areas or with specific products. Now, as we mentioned, we were going to discuss a little bit about the risk assessment. Now, a risk assessment has to be designed with the product, the task, and the site in mind. So when designing a risk assessment for the use of this Tang PVC glue, the first thing we need to do is actually have the latest, most updated copy for South Africa with South African regulations and use that MSDS before designing our risk assessment. When you identify the hazards, we are talking about the hazards now of the PVC glue, but you are going to be discussing the hazards of your entire scope of work. And that could be driving from home to work, from work to the client, the use of roads, the use of vehicles, the transportation of vehicles, including the whole COVID-19 risk assessment as well, about social distancing, masks, hand sanitizers, hand cleaning, etc. And then when we identify the hazards for the Tang PVC glue, these will also be multiple hazards. Remember, there are different types of uses for it. There are also different types of hazards. There is the inhalation hazard. There is the hazard of getting it onto your actual skin. Now, this risk category or risk assessment is going to be specific to your task, but it must be also specific to the chemical that you are using. And in this case, you will have a section on hazardous chemical substance inside that risk assessment. The same as you are going to have a section of COVID-19, as well as a section on the actual specific scope of work that you're performing. So you must have these clear guidelines for working safely with this type of chemical. And this can come from the MSDS. It gives you clear-cut guidelines on how to use it and what type of PPE to use as well. Then this becomes your safe working procedure. So once you've designed the risk assessment, which includes your safe working, your PPE, the first aid measures, your emergency measures, as well as your waste disposal measures, all become part of a safe working procedure. And this is like a method statement. It tells you what type of PPE you should be using, what are the actual hazards and the risks. It's not a risk assessment. Risk assessment is separate from your safe work procedure, and the safe work procedure is a very brief description of what needs to be done to work with that particular item. You should have a safe work procedure for hand tools, portable electrical tools, working with waste, working with sewers, and each environment, even confined spaces, as we're going to discuss next week. Your risk assessment will be a combination of your entire task that is going to be performed on site. So to give you a brief description of a risk assessment that will be done for somebody who's using a chemical like Tang PVC, it could be somebody that is repairing, replacing, or installing piping on a client's premises. The risk assessment will include your travel to your client. It will include your COVID-19 precautionary measures that must be in place currently. It will include the digging, the grinding, the cutting, the installation of anchor points, whatever it is to connect piping or bury piping or to uplift piping or bricks, whatever it is on the excavation or the actual where the plumbing is going to be going. It will then also include the use of the hand tools and portable electrical tools in order to do that work. Then there will be a few lines on the use of the PVC glue in order to glue those pipes together. And then there's additional things in the risk assessment, such as housekeeping, the exiting or entering or access points of the actual site. It will also include a little bit of the first aid measures on what to do should you have a first aid case, as well as the emergency measures and who to call in the event of an emergency. Your safe working procedure, however, for this will only be for the Tang PVC glue. And you may have 10, 20, 30 safe working procedures for this type of task. And that will include hand tools, portable electrical tools, digging or excavation, the use of a vehicle, the use of electric equipment. All of this will be designed as a mirror of the risk assessment, but please make these separate documents. Now, why do we say you need to go through all of this type of information? Well, it is because it is extremely dangerous to work with these types of products, with these types of tools and equipment. And we need to have clear guidelines of how to ensure the safety of ourselves as well as our employees. So maybe ask yourself, do you have the correct MSDS, risk assessment, safe working procedure, and contact details of your local authorities when it comes to the spillage of this hazardous chemical substance, the first aid person or the hospital to go to should somebody induce, actually inhale or swallow this type of PVC glue, which your first aider will not be able to deal with. And then where are you going to dispose correctly if you need to correctly dispose any of the waste from this PVC glue, and ensure that you are doing it in conjunction or in accordance with the local authorities' requirements. So in other words, what we are saying is it is a lot of information and a lot of work that goes into preparing a risk assessment. Once it is done, the next time you use the PVC glue on another site, you've got your work done for you. Now you will just include the risk assessment of the specific site. The application of the PVC glue will no doubt not really change because you're always going to be using it almost in the same process. But get this information to your team. Let them know and understand what they need to do. Next week, as we mentioned, we are going to be discussing hazardous environments, which is confined spaces. Again, please reach out to us if you have any questions. And we want to say thank you very much to IOPSA, SIOSH, as well as the PRB for accrediting this with CPD points. So thank you very much for listening in today. We look forward to hearing from you during the week and also for you joining us next week, Tuesday, for hazardous environments, confined spaces.